Hey, welcome to another Bible study walkthrough where you're going to learn how to read the Bible effectively. You'll learn some real Bible study skills. And at the end of this, hopefully you'll know how to read the Bible better and you'll know what wisdom really looks like and how to avoid foolishness. That's the key here. True wisdom is actually resisting the temptation to give into foolishness. So, Proverbs chapter 1, verse 8. Let's go to verse 7, the end of verse 7, to remember what it was that Solomon ended with. He says, fools despise wisdom and instruction. And instruction. Both those things. Now, Solomon is about to warn his son that he loves. He's going to say, hear my son, your father's instruction. Okay? So what Solomon is offering now is an opportunity for the son to hear what he's saying, be instructed in order to not be a fool that despises wisdom. Okay? So he says, hear my son, your father's instruction, and forsake not your mother's teaching. Here we see the father and the mother, hopefully in a proper family setting. Moms and dads should be instructing and teaching their children in the ways of God. That's primarily our role in the sanctification process of our children, is that we want to disciple them in the fear of the Lord. We want to help them know his ways and to love his ways and to know his word. And so here, the son has an opportunity to reject the mother's teaching from his youth and his father's instruction, or he can listen, hear it, and regard it and apply it with wisdom, okay? Sometimes we prefer wisdom to come to us in a certain package, right? But God doesn't always offer us wisdom in the way that we prefer. Sometimes it comes through those who are closest to us that we'd rather not listen to, or maybe they don't have a track record of being wise at all, and all of a sudden wisdom's coming out of their mouth. So this isn't like, hey, mothers and fathers are infallible sources. This is, hey, moms and dads have instruction and teaching that God actually wants to give to the children. There's wisdom that moms and dads have. We want to learn how to stand on their shoulders and build on the foundation that they're trying to give us. And a lot of people don't want to regard their parents. They're disrespectful. And so all I'm saying is here, wisdom is hearing actually what your parents have to say. And the instruction and teaching there, of course, we're to discern it. But Solomon is offering this wisdom as, hey, don't at all reject this because this is confirmed by God. Verse 9, it says, they are a graceful garland for your head and their pendants for your neck. In other words, it's almost like they're dressed or decorated with the wisdom and the instruction of their parents. You can see it on their life. It becomes visible in the way that they live. Wow, you had parents who raised you well or who instructed and taught you the ways of God. And it becomes more beautiful. The wisdom demonstrated in their life becomes more beautiful than any kind of pendant that you could decorate yourself with, or any other kind of garland, or any kind of, other headwear or clothing you can put on to make yourself look beautiful or handsome. Solomon is essentially saying wisdom makes people look real beautiful, real beautiful, or handsome. My son, if sinners entice you, notice how he transitions between hear what your parents have to say, because we value you, we love you, you know us, you know our experience with you. And then he transitions to what sinners will do. It's almost like the son here has an opportunity. Will I listen to sinners, or will I listen to the wisdom given to me by my parents to actually avoid sinners? My son, if sinners entice you, right? They're trying to trap. They're trying to encourage the son to do what is evil. Don't consent. Do not consent. Like, don't sign the waiver form. Don't give yourself over to their plans and ideas that are wicked and sinful. They're called sinners. That's what's worth noting, okay? They're called sinners. If you go back to verse 7, fools despise wisdom and instruction, right? And I believe that sin is going to be the product, or one who lives in sin as a sinner, that's going to be the product of rejecting wisdom and instruction time and time again. The more you reject wisdom and instruction, the deeper you go into sin. Sinners here are those who reject the ways of God, the wisdom of God, the truth of God. They don't consider his word or what he wants for their life. So they're called sinners, right? Because they live in sin. They do whatever their sinful body wants. And now the son is enticed by these sinners to go and join them in what they're doing. And Solomon is saying, do not consent. Don't give yourself over. Don't approve of what they're doing. Even if it seems really enticing, Even if it looks like it'll get you what you want, don't. If they say, hey, come with us, here's what they're enticing the son to do. They're saying, come with us. Just like at the Tower of Babel, the men and women decide, humanity in rebellion to God says, hey, come, let's build a tower to God. Let's make a name for ourselves. Let us lie in wait for blood. So interesting. The son is invited by sinners, being enticed, to go and do what will actually cause harm and damage to someone else, possibly death. In other words, whatever they're saying, let's go and do, it's actually going to cost someone else their life or damage them or harm them in the process. Let us ambush the innocent without reason. This right here is also worth noting. It's not just ambushing and waiting in wait for the waiting in wait, but it's actually like lying in wait without reason to hurt innocent people. So think about what the sinners are asking the son to join them in doing. Hey, come with us. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to lie in wait. We're going to ambush the innocent for no reason, right? For our advantage, for our profit, for our gain. And it's going to actually damage them in the process. It's oppression. It's hurting people. Real wisdom isn't willing to hurt people. Real wisdom isn't willing to oppress people or damage people or trample on people, right? All these different ways of saying, if you're ever thinking of taking advantage of someone, you're not operating in true wisdom, okay? Wisdom never lies in wait to ambush, especially the innocent or anyone, especially without a reason, man. No reason at all. Like Sheol led us. So this right here is when you read the Bible enough, you'll come across these phrases that you'll go, why have I seen that so much? This phrase, led us, is used a lot, especially in the beginning of the biblical narrative in Genesis. There's let us build a tower. Let us fill in the blank. Man in rebellion to God always conspires together to go against the plan of God. And here we have sinners who are also saying, hey, let us swallow them alive. Swallow them alive. In other words, let's take their life. Why? Why are we swallowing the life of people without reason? And whole, like those who go down to the pit. The pit in Scripture is often a place where despair is, turmoil, especially death. Joseph in the pit, Daniel in the pit, Jesus in the tomb. The pit is often a place you do not want to go, and these sinners want to actually bring people down there. Or their ambushing is likened to taking people down to the pit. We shall find all precious goods. So there it is. Here it is. All the precious goods that they want. So they want something. They're envious of what someone else has. They're coveting. And because of that, they're willing to destroy someone else's life, shed innocent blood, to get what their eye sees as good. They're called precious goods because the sinners are evaluating what someone else has as what they deserve. They're entitled to it, so much so that they're willing to take someone else's life. And the son here is invited to the party, you might say. We shall find all precious goods. We shall fill our houses with plunder. This right here notes the taking advantage of another, or taking what rightfully belongs to another. That is not rightfully theirs. They want to fill their houses. Wisdom will not take what isn't yours, right? Wisdom will not envy or covet what someone else has. Real wisdom actually is content with what God gives. So it's interesting that their decision to take and to kill is likened to Sheol, right here, and the pit, the place of the dead, the place where death occurs. In other words, they're willing to cause death for their own gain. And real wisdom will actually never do that. Real wisdom is actually concerned with not just my own benefit, but the benefit of another. Okay? So they're still enticing the son, going, look, throw in your lot among us. In other words, participate in what we're doing among us. He'd be counted, if the son actually goes on with it, he'd be counted among them as one of the sinners. We will all have one purse. Like, we'll share. We're doing this to share, right? We're going to share the plunder. My son, do not walk in the way with them. Now, biblically, you're going to see, especially in the Psalms, the concept of the way, and Deuteronomy, and just early on in the law, right here, the way, there is the way of God, and there is the way of sinners, right? And their way here is also described as a path. So if you're like, I don't know what a way is, essentially he's saying, hey, sinners are on a certain path. It's leading to destruction. Don't walk on that same path with them. Keep your foot back from that path. Okay, keep your feet here. That's important to highlight because I decide where my feet go. That's up to me. Real wisdom can actually discern where someone else is going. They evaluate the path that someone is on, and they go, do I want to join them and walk in that way, or do I want to hold my foot back from the path? And Solomon here is saying, yeah, don't walk on the path or the way of sinners. You know why? Their feet actually are running to evil. So you can know where someone is going, discern that prayerfully through the word of God, and go and make it a very educated decision where you go, I don't want to go where they're going. They're actually making haste to shed blood. So evil here is shedding blood. Okay? And these people who are willing to shed blood, and their feet are actually running to it. They're not like hesitating. They're like, yes, let's go shed some blood. In vain is a net spread in the sight of any bird. So now he's going to use the picture of a bird. If there's a bird, right, and you set a net right there in front of the bird, that's pretty dumb because the bird sees what you're doing. They ain't going to fall for it, right? In other words, it ends up being for nothing or in vain, right? So notice how the path and the way of the sinner is equated to vanity. It's equated to vanity. Why would the son want to do what amounts to nothing? Even though it's enticing and sounds good, look at all the pleasure and what we'll gain and profit. The sinners present their plan as something good, whereas if the son evaluates their plan through the teaching and wisdom of the father, he'll notice this is in vain. This amounts to nothing. This is useless. These men lie in wait for their own blood. So not only is it ultimately gaining nothing, the sinners on their path of sin and evil, intending to harm someone else, end up harming themselves. Their own plan falls on their own head. They set a net not for the prey, but for themselves. They set an ambush for their own lives. That's what makes their path and their way useless and vain, is that ultimately when they're done, it's them who's going to be harmed. It's them who's going to be hurt. And wisdom can discern that. Wisdom can evaluate where someone's going, the direction and trajectory of their life, what they're doing, the path they're on, and make a thoughtful, wise decision, right? So notice the ambush here that they're setting. Let's kill some people. They're lying in wait. It ends up being that they're setting this net or this ambush for themselves, and they don't even know it. Do you know why? Because they're not operating in wisdom. Wisdom allows you to have foresight in decisions. It doesn't mean you can ultimately know how everything's going to work out in every single way. But in the general sense, if they walked in wisdom, they'd realize, hey, what we're doing is actually going to hurt ourselves. Such are the ways of everyone. And notice back to the whole way idea. The ways, not just a way of life, not just a path to walk on, but multiple ways. How they repeatedly live their life and make decisions. It's consistent with what? Evil. It's consistent with evil. Such are the ways of everyone who is greedy for unjust gain. So notice what they're greedy for. It tells you explicitly. What is it that these people, these sinners, are really wanting? You know what they want ultimately? It's gain. They're greedy for gain. But look at the descriptive word. It's not just profiting, it's unjust. It comes at the cost of someone else's life, but how the tables have turned at the end of this, ironically, those who were intending to shed someone else's blood end up ambushing themselves, and it's unjust. God ultimately makes sure that people get what they deserve in the end. He makes sure the consequences are fair of everyone's decisions. And it takes away the life of its possessors. So he's not denying the fact that they end up possessing this gain. He's not denying that. He's saying, yeah, they'll get it. Maybe they will even enjoy it for a season or for some period of time. And it might even bring some kind of happiness. But in the end, that temporary happiness or pleasure they experienced from it is going to be outweighed or overshadowed by the fact that their life is actually taken. Notice how it comes at the cost of their life. To gain something, this is what Jesus says. What profit is it to gain the whole world, yet you forfeit your own soul? Right? You forfeit your own soul. And so people who go after what they think is good, what seems good, what looks good, even though it's evil in the sight of God, and they don't care about the ways of God, they end up losing their own life, going after what they think will fulfill them, but it actually destroys them because of the fact that it's unjustly gained, and also the fact that it was evil to go ahead and go after it to begin with. It takes away the life of its possessors. Notice what is considered gain here ends up being a loss. It takes away. That's the ironic thing. Oh, I gained something. No, you actually lost something. In the end, you lost your life, and you won't care that you gained that for a season or for a moment compared to the however long you're going to experience the loss of life, right? Eternally, like that's a bummer. And so wisdom is being able to hold back your foot from the path of evil, right? It's actually self-control. Wisdom here is demonstrated as self-control. You don't have to walk on the path you've been on for so long. You can actually change paths and walk on the path of God. Just because you've been accustomed to running to evil doesn't mean you have to keep doing it. You have now, by the Spirit of God, self-control is a gift. It's a fruit of the Spirit. You can hold back your own foot and not blame someone else for, I didn't. No, you have the ability to hold back your own foot from the path of evil so that you're not the one snared, you're not the one being ambushed by yourself, and you're not the one who ends up losing your life in the process of going after something that God never wanted you to. Often, a good indication that you're going after something that God doesn't want for you is the fact that you're willing to do something unjust to get it. That's Proverbs chapter 1, verse 8 through 19. I'll see you guys in the next Bible walkthrough here in the book of Proverbs.